So, ladies and gentlemen, most of you probably remember that we actually did not have time to cover the State of the Union speech last week. We did cover it, but we only covered it on our members-only bonus episode. We didn't have time to cover it on the regular show. One aspect, however, of the State of the Union we talked about a good deal was this following sequence, which actually is going to tie into another story. So take a listen. This is President Barack Obama last week at the State of the Union.
The shift to a cleaner energy economy won't happen overnight, and it will require some tough choices along the way. But the debate is settled. Climate change is a fact. And when our children's children look us in the eye and ask if we did all we could to leave them a safer, more stable world with new sources of energy, I want us to be able to say, yes, we did.
Now, that sounds pretty good, right? It sounds pretty positive, right? It sounds pretty strong and forthright. You know, if you didn't know any better, you would probably think that President Barack Obama is someone who is working very, very hard to fight the real and present danger of climate change. You would think that, but fortunately, we all know better. Unfortunately, his approach to climate change, as we've talked about on the show time and time again, is a disaster. Now, before all of that beautiful rhetoric, in the State of the Union itself, Obama actually bragged about his all-of-the-above energy strategy that includes hydrofracking, that includes increasing drilling offshore for oil. You know, more drilling is happening in the U.S. than in a long time. All that dirty energy, that's part of Obama's all-of-the-above energy strategy. Well, we talked about all of that on the bonus episode, and I bring it up here because this last Friday afternoon, the State Department released its final supplemental environmental impact statement on the northern portion of the Trans-Canada Keystone XL tar sands pipeline. You guys probably remember, we covered this a lot on the show. You remember that the southern half has actually already been approved. The southern half is actually already pumping tar sands oil through the pipeline, but the northern half has yet to be approved. And so the news about the northern half of KXL, I'm sure you're shocked to find out, is actually not good news. Again, and if you aren't familiar with the pipeline, this is a pipeline that if approved, countless climate scientists, James Hansen, NASA's leading scientists, say will be, quote, game over for the environment. Again, we've been covering this story quite a deal, but reading from the State Department report, quote, approval or denial of any one crude oil transport project, including the proposed project, is unlikely to significantly impact the rate of extraction in the oil sands or the continued demand for heavy crude oil at refineries in the United States based on expected oil, end quote. It went on to say even further that the KXL pipeline is, quote, unlikely to have a substantial impact on the rate of development in the oil sands, end quote. Folks, I don't think I have to tell you this, but that is grossly, demonstrably untrue. It is remarkably untrue. And we're going to get to that, the untrue, the lie of that in a second. And we're going to get to what the report says on the lie in a second. But what the report is essentially saying is that no matter what, the dirty tar sands oil up in Alberta, Canada, is coming out no matter what. So because of that, we're not even going to look at the cost, the climate cost of this tar sands coming out of the ground. So let's not even talk about the climate impacts, because who cares about that, right? Why should the environmental impact report talk about the impact on the environment? That's just silly. Well, okay, so obviously this is infuriating, but let's break down why the premise of this report is a complete and utter load of crap. Shall we? Yes, let's do that. So here's the deal. There are other ways of transporting tar sands oil, primarily by rail, also by trucks, but both of those ways are slower. Much, much slower. They also spill and crash a lot. Hell, Steve Horn from DeSmog Blog was on not that long ago, talking about train rails derailing with tar sands oil in them and stuff like that. So that's if they don't have the pipeline, they're going to have to do it by train or by truck, which drastically slows it down. Because once KXL North is up and operational, reading from the Smog blog, it will, quote, carry up to 830,000 barrels of tar sands oil per day. Opening Keystone would emit as much CO2 into the atmosphere as opening 6 new coal-fired power plants. End quote. The Smog blog also had another story that showed that once KXL North is operational, it would most likely boost global oil consumption by 500,000 barrels a day. Just by the fact that it's readily available, prices would drop. We'd be using more of it because it would be cheaper on the global market. We're talking about the global market here because, again, all this oil isn't actually going to Americans. Most of it's going to be exported to other countries. So really what this pipeline does is it makes a very small few corporations lots and lots of money while damning the rest of the planet to climate extinction. Fun stuff, right? So what climate scientists have been saying over and over and over again, what if we want to have a shot, any shot at all, of averting massive climate disaster, what we need to do is we need to keep around 2/3 of the known fossil fuel reserves in the ground. We actually have to keep them in the ground. We can't extract them. We have to keep them where they are right now if we even want to have a slight shot of averting massive climate disaster. And that's just a small shot. That's our last little hope on this here. So stopping the northern half of KXL, what that does is essentially it buys us a little more time to actually keep that 2/3 of the stuff in the ground. Just a little bit more time, but if it's approved, we literally have no shot because 830,000 barrels of this oil is coming out a day. It's the dirtiest of oils that the carbon released from extracting it, the carbon released in refining it to actually make it usable, because this is, again, not normal oil. This is like this dirty crud that takes a lot of energy just to process into making it usable. It is an utter mess. But again, if it happens, we got no shot of this at all. The study, folks, is a complete and utter load of crap. But the fact that it's a load of crap actually comes as no surprise, because the way it was commissioned by the State Department, it was actually designed to be a load of crap. You may remember we actually talked about this before, I think with Steve Horn. It was either Steve Horn or we read one of his reports, because again, Steve does amazing work on this stuff. So the State Department environmental impact study was done actually not by the State Department. It was actually done, it was contracted out to a company that's called ERM. ERM, folks, which you may remember, has direct financial ties to, wait for it, TransCanada. That's right, they have direct financial ties to TransCanada, the firm that's trying to build the pipeline. Ties that they lied about to the State Department. ERM also has financial ties to Exxon, to Shell, to Chevron. Companies that will make lots and lots of money if KXL is approved. ERM is also, you may remember, a due-paying member of, wait for it, the American Petroleum Institute. That's right, folks, you heard me. The company that the State Department is paying to determine whether this oil pipeline is environmentally sound is a due-paying member of the American Petroleum Institute. That American Petroleum Institute, which, by the way, has spent over $22 million lobbying for, wait for it, that's right, the KXL pipeline. In fact, the obvious conflict of interest in this whole entire thing is actually under investigation by the Inspector General of the State Department, and many people in Congress are actually been urging the State Department not to release this impact study until that investigation can be completed. But lo and behold, this last Friday, the Friday before the Super Bowl, they went and released it anyway, hoping that nobody will notice. Of course, we noticed. But look, hey, ERM, they're a member of the American Petroleum Institute. They lied about their ties to TransCanada, but they say TransCanada's pipeline is environmentally sound. We should totally believe them, right? They wouldn't have any reason to lie, right? They wouldn't have any financial stake in this, right? It's a sham, folks. It is a bloody, bloody sham. And it's, again, what's so immensely crazy about this is it's such an obvious sham. It is an obvious sham. The corruption here is so blatant. It's so out in the open. You wonder how they're getting away with it. And look, it's not entirely over here. It's not. Here's the deal, folks, and this is where all our activism needs to come into full friggin' tilt, full steam ahead here. The decision is still ultimately President Barack Obama's. He ultimately has to sign it, either approve it or not, and that decision is still probably 4 months away, maybe 6 months away. And there is a chance that maybe President Obama still says no. In June, specifically talking about KXL North, Obama said he would only approve it if, quote, this project does not significantly exacerbate the problem of carbon pollution, end quote. Look, if you take Barack Obama on his word on that quote, we really should have nothing to worry about. That really should be the end of it. But I think all of us know that's not the end of it. I really do think that this whole entire process of KXL, starting with, the 10,000 people that surrounded the White House holding hands to protest this, sounding all the people who have been arrested, starting with the tar sands blockade who have chained themselves to part of the pipeline, Obama, I really do believe, is stringing us all along, hoping that we forget or hoping that we get caught up in something else. That's not going to happen. That is not going to happen. On Monday, around 200 protest vigils were held all around the country to protest the State Department's report, to protest the pipeline, to tell Obama to not approve it. In a campaign by the other 98% and Credo and a couple other groups, over 76,000 people have signed a pledge of civil disobedience, pledging to risk arrest if President Obama does approve the northern half of KXL. 76,000 people saying they're willing to get arrested to stop this pipeline. So look, maybe President Obama does end up saying no. But if he does decide to approve this, I want to play this part of the State of the Union speech again. Take a listen.
But the debate is settled. Climate change is a fact. And when our children's children look us in the eye and ask if we did all we could to leave them a safer, more stable world with new sources of energy, I want us to be able to say, yes, we did.
I'm going to be honest with you. When I heard that part of the speech, it actually made me madder than, pretty much any political rhetoric I have heard in recent memory, as long as I can remember. Knowing that he could say that in his speech, knowing how horrible he has already been on the environment. And I've said this time and time again on the show. I really do think that Barack Obama's lasting legacy is actually going to be his horrible action on the environment. Knowing how horrible he's already been, knowing that there's a better than average chance that he is going to approve the KXL North, knowing that he's clearly a smart enough person that he has to know the very real and present danger and threat of climate change. Knowing all that he still had the gall to invoke his children and his children's children in a speech to score political points. I mean, seriously, when I heard that, it made me think of villains in movies, saying things like, no, don't do it. I swear I didn't do it. I swear on my children's graves. I swear on my kids' graves. That's what I thought of. I thought of some slimy villain in a movie. If he does approve KXL North, after saying that he wants to look his children and grandchildren in the eye, if he can say that using his children as pawns and still approve this pipeline that is game over for our environment, for our planet, if he can still do that, folks, I literally do not have words to describe what kind of monster that is. We'll have to wait and see. We'll be right back.